Everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Hearthstone. Let's hop into it. So, I am not exactly certain how this is gonna go, but we need to get into it. Let's see, we need Druid, and Priest. So let's start with some Druid rank play right now. My Hearthstone deck tracker is up for me, but you shouldn't see it, so it should toggle as soon as it refreshes, as soon as I find the Druid. Standard is now there, so there. Ranked, play, begin. So, mistake number one today is I'm gonna start turning out like this Minecraft streamer called Mumbo Jovo, who calls himself a spoon every time he makes a mistake. At this rate,
I must protect the wild.
Mistake number one I have learned from on my little board, my boogie board, my whiteboard that's actually a digital whiteboard. Always start with the smallest text that I can legibly write as, which isn't a lot because my handwriting isn't great and the pen tip isn't really that good and there isn't a lot of space on this board anyways. In fact, I saw there's this product that I followed on Twitter because of some contest, I'm sure, called Games, Gaems, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they have this little pole thing that has modular things you can put on it, and one of the modular things is a place to rest your headphones. I could certainly use that because I'm resting it on the arm of my microphone stand, which is not good. And it also has an attachment where you could connect a cell phone, an attachment where you could connect an iPad. So with those two attachments, particularly, I'm in a rather good, I would be in a really good setup to have one of those. So maybe when I have extra cash and it makes sense to stop buying new games and invest more in equipment, that's on the list at the very, very bottom. The only problem there is that I probably have hardware and things that would be better suited to spend that kind of any money on. Budgeting should always be a concern, even if you are rolling in cash. Let's see. I should do this again. Just to destroy his next draw card.
My hand is too full.
There you go. There's a legendary card destroyed.
A glorious invention.
But yeah, holding the screen up and having a small screen is two separate things, so I need to probably have a second screen or a larger whiteboard at some point too. But again, if I'm gonna do something like that, it's something that is long time from now, I would say.
Drink with me, friend.
Just gonna take the owl back. Wow. That worked rather nicely. So, first thing on my board today, I'm gonna stop saying my board because now I feel like I'm repeating the word too much, is Red Dead Redemption PC rumors are back in the news. It seems like it happens almost every year, maybe around PAX West time every year. PAX Prime, that's what it used to be called, PAX Prime. That the rumor now is that, yeah, maybe somewhere out there, the Rockstar is really going to this time release a PC version of Red Dead Redemption. which is the sequel to Red Dead Revolver, which nobody really cares if that gets ported, or maybe it is already on PC and it's just such an old game it doesn't matter. Everything I've heard from every article tells me Rockstar did work on a PC version of that, but barely ever started, and they didn't really care. So from what I understand, I don't think they're going to do that. I just feel like they're never going to be there. It kind of sucks because I did like Red Dead Redemption until you got to Mexico, and then it just too much game had happened at that point, and I left off and never continued from that point. Which is funny because that's where I've heard several people just stop playing at that point. It was at about the halfway point through the game, you can just stop playing. Okay, that was my experience also. And so, let's see. If you control a beast gain taunt, I will take that. Attack here. So I would just say, don't get your hopes up. If it comes out on PC, maybe I could play it, but I've also had some problems with PC ports lately, and an old game getting ported to PC doesn't mean it's going to run well, doesn't mean it's going to be as good as you remembered. It kind of helps a potential future where the sequel, if there ever is a sequel, comes out. See, I could do 5 damage to this guy and kill him, but then I would need to do more.
I wonder.
I'm gonna do this, this, and
For the wild.
this. As soon as this guy gets down to 5 health, though, I can take him out. So, yeah, the other PC problem I've had is Resident Evil 4. I desperately wanted to play Resident Evil 4. There was a miscommunication in my own head, obviously, where I thought there was going to be a new version of Resident Evil 4 coming up for PC, but there wasn't. And there kind of needs to be a new version for PC, and I imagine maybe in the future at some point there will be, but just not right now. Resident Evil 4 does not run on my computer, and there's no reason for it not to. It has a mode for fixed 30 frames per second, it has a mode for fixed 60, it tries to, by default goes to 720p, it doesn't run at 720p. It doesn't run with all the video settings turned down. It runs in the sense that the game actually is playable, but it hitches up in random animations of simplistic things like turning around, reloading a gun, just at random places. The engine itself is locking up. It probably is just a terrible engine, and I couldn't explain it much more than this, but if I was to guess, it might be limited to a single core of the CPU, or something like that, where it's just like not running efficiently, or maybe even it's running a GameCube emulator inside of itself to stop the, let's see, if I do 2 damage to everybody, that's a good start. And then this, and then I'm gonna play this. It's kind of a waste to do
For
this,
the wild.
I think that'll work. So, I mean, just hitching up consistently. I spent 2.5 hours trying to play the game, starting over. It's kind of a interesting way to show that I don't really do a lot of setup or experimentation. I just go into the recording and go. A lot of games, making a new save file is kind of hard, and frankly, it's just a time management thing, and I'm probably not doing it right. But also, I don't have an intern or anybody working with me at all that I could say, you know what, go play this game, play it halfway through the entire game, make sure at least the first half of the game runs smoothly. And that wouldn't even have helped for a game such as The Witcher 3, which only had trouble at the very last second of the game. It wasn't the very last second, but it was very far into it that I started having things. And game bugging and game testing like that certainly fixes things that are early in the game a lot more than they fix things that are late in the game. But this was happening all throughout, and it was early in the game. They just a terrible port. So if you want to go play Resident Evil 4, I'd highly recommend waiting and seeing if somebody can review it playing it on the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4, because that's the best version if it works. If it works. If it doesn't work, then I would recommend getting the 360 version and playing that.
On with the show! For the wild!
I am 1 health short, but it's fine at least. But, so, part of the thing about RE4 too is it has original textures and it has HD textures. It didn't really matter in my experiments if you went back to original textures or not. And at that point, you're just playing the old game. If you're playing it at 720p with no effects turned up and the original textures, you're playing the GameCube game and still having a worse experience than if you just could pull out a GameCube and plug it into a capture box. But it does kind of have this frivolity to it. It's just kind of pointless. The attempts to put more textures on a bad engine that simply can't really handle it, and it lines up very nicely with Batman Return to Arkham. Now, Batman Arkham Knight was a terrible PC port, but I'm not sure that's the same truth for Arkham Asylum, Arkham Asylum 2, and like the third game in there. I think Arkham Knight is also potentially going to get thrown in that. But the textures on that too have been tweaked. So there are higher details, and it really makes no sense that they had to redraw new textures for those games, because those games are not that old. And that gets back to there's this team of 2 people doing an HD project for RE4 where they're redrawing the textures, and by the time they're done, they need to probably redraw them all again for 4K and 8K. And by the time they're done redrawing them for 8K, they might even start to think about maybe there'll be a 16K. I'm sure somebody eventually will make an argument for doing 16K, even if it really makes no sense and is beyond the ability of the human eye to even see. But
This isn't Moonglade.
But yeah, it's, I imagine, just gonna go up and up and up, and you just want those raw images, those raw vector files. Oh, this is no good. Let's see, I can do not enough damage to him. So this, And then
Where?
this, that was a mistake. I should just hit that guy.
Drink with me,
And
friend.
I'll take this guy back.
Job done.
And so, yeah, it's like they're redrawing textures on Batman Return to Arkham, which the redraw makes no sense. I think you would just like say, well, this is a remaster. We had these master files at a much higher rate. We just couldn't put them in the original game because we weren't running at a resolution where it mattered, and it would have taken up too much space. And we didn't want to give you 5 extra discs of content and have you change games the whole time through. I mean, I think those are kind of valid arguments, and I'm fine with game creators holding back and not giving us raw vector files of everything if there's even a slightly legitimate reason. It's the product they want to offer. Ideally, in the future, yes, they will by default always hand you vector files that will scale up from 1080p minimum to 8K, and there's no redrawing necessary, and there's none of that. The problem, though, is vector files and textures are sort of different things. While you can do a texture of a circle and a vector of a circle, when you start scaling up the vector of the circle gets bigger, where if you scale up the texture of the circle, it gets blockier and bigger. But it also means, but either one of those things, the thing gets bigger. And so the problem then becomes, if you want to like do a pattern on a rug and things get scaled up, wouldn't it be better if the pattern became more intrinsic and like detailed? Isn't that?
Give that minion a turn.
I don't know why I did that.
For the wild.
Character.
Job done.
I guess now the threat is to kill this guy. So I would much rather them redraw a rug and have twice as many curves and angles in that like detailed pattern of picking an oriental rug here, than them just scaling it up and then the curve being twice as big. And so at a certain point it becomes you need to redraw it anyways.
Let's negotiate. You concede, and I'll let you. Let's negotiate. You concede, and I'll let you. A new acquisition.
This guy's gonna
For the wild.
give me cards.
Job done.
So it is kind of weird, but I kind of like it too. I certainly think the problem is in the engines of both games. It's like
A new acquisition.
it seems kind of pointless to remake Batman because it's not even maybe 7 or 8 years old, and 7 or 8 years in the past 7 8 years is just barely enough to even justify it. To justify making a remake, where RE4 is 11 years old. I mean, there's a major difference there of 11 and 7, because there hasn't been that much of an addition here. There's a big jump between something that was using like DirectX 9C and something that was using DirectX 10 and something that was using DirectX 11, which is what I think we're all up to now. Just gonna do 2 damage to all. And this.
For the wild.
Lose. news I just realized. Alright. So, the other thing about Batman Arkham, and which it's going to be a very interesting game to see reviewed because they've effectively changed completely how it looks. So the whole game is looking different because some of the textures are redone, but the rest of the game, the vast majority of the game, looks different because there's in-game or in-rendering effects have been changed. Things are a lot darker now. Things that used to be shiny tiles or shiny pieces of leather, there's quite a lot of leather suits and costumes in Batman, are now not shiny, and like the Joker's outfit and the Joker's face was this pale white sickly looking thing, and now it feels kind of darker.
I must protect the wild.
If you go from like a limited RGB for TV safe to the full RGB, typically things do get darker, and that's also kind of the problem with why when you watch things on YouTube, on the Xbox in particular, through that app, the colors and things are just incredibly dark. Where if you watch it on a computer screen, it's not. And then of course you have things like Styx Master of the Shadows, which is just kind of incredibly dark the whole game, and I've played several games like that. That one's coming out right now, so it came right to mind. So speaking of nothing really, the game Recore announced its PC minimum and recommended specs, and I didn't even know it was coming out to PC. I guess it doesn't really matter that I didn't know because the game isn't out yet and it's not even into that final cycle of getting hype and announcements for it, so it doesn't really matter that much. But the things that stick out in my mind are, for the recommended and the minimum, you have to have Windows 10. There's straight up saying nobody's going to play Recore unless you have Windows 10. Does that mean it's a Windows Store app? I don't know. We kind of have to hold our breath with that one. Quantum Break was delayed for the Steam version, so that is also a slight concern. But that's something we'll just see. I do kind of want to play Recore, but I need a lot more information. They keep telling me and pretending like this is somehow going to be a Metroidvania game, and it just doesn't feel like it is. It feels much more like it feels much more like it's just going to be a runaround adventure game.
Who's next?
So yeah, I don't know what it really is yet. The other thing about its recommended specification, and this is just recommended, it's recommended to have a GTX 970, which is what I have. And that's slightly concerning because now games are coming out and the recommended setting is what I have. And that's not where I particularly want to be as a video game reviewer. As somebody who is committed to playing video games
This guy's toast.
like as their career, I should be above what the average player should be. And the average player, according to their recommendation, should be at what I'm at. And see, there becomes the difficulty in that it's I need to find funding to jump over the thing. I need to leap from a 970 to a 1080 or the new Titan that's even above the 1080, which I probably couldn't have ever afforded, or more than one of those in SLI, which I don't want to do SLI, so that's a problem. Here, I'll go down the list here. Duke Nukem Forever is on sale for $10 because they announced the new 20th anniversary of Duke Nukem.
I'll put it on your
I think even for $10, you're probably getting ripped off though. What's funny about Duke Nukem Forever is that it's only got mixed reviews on Steam. So that's how much you can trust the reviews on Steam. So when you know the assumedly worst, the almost objectively provable worst AAA game ever, a downright awful game, is still getting mixed reviews because there's just a bunch of people on there trolling. I'm sure. I bet if I went through all the reviews, I'd just be like, oh, these are jokes. Yeah, they're reviewing it good because they're making a joke. I am almost certain that's exactly what the case is. Let's see, I need taunt, so I'm gonna bring this guy out, and I could play this and do a little bit more damage.
For the wilds.
But no, I'm just gonna leave it. I do want to get Duke Nukem Forever at some point, but I want to get it like 90% off, not 75% off. I want to get it down for $250. I think Gearbox is just trying to catch some nostalgia and sell it kind of at an expensive thing. On top of that thought too, when they announced the Duke Nukem game, they announced it not from Gearbox Software, but from a new division that I had not heard anything about called Gearbox Publishing.
Job's done.
Which almost every video game developer at some point wants to become a publisher and get money for doing nothing. And I think they're going that way in detail. Let's see. What else do we have to talk about?
The Brotherhood shall come.
Pokemon Sun and Moon has a photo mode like Pokemon Snap in it. I think that is an amazingly good idea, and ridiculous that they didn't do that right after Pokemon Snap came out. I mean, it really makes no sense in retrospect. I certainly didn't think of it myself back then, but yeah. Why has it not been that there was a photo mode in every single Pokemon game since that game? Because that was a kind of fun idea, and it didn't have to be its own separate thing. Could have just helped them add more. Anywho, that's going to be it for this recording session. We didn't get very far here, did we? Next time we'll try the Priest. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All of that helps out. If you want to support me further, you can click on my name, Rydo. On the right will be a blue button that says support this channel. Click it, make a donation. And if you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.